Before anything else, drop a like right now, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell, because that helps a lot to keep this content coming to you and strengthens this community that lives and breathes NBA every single day. Now, let's get to what matters. Ladies and gentlemen, the vibe in the NBA has changed. It's not an exaggeration, it's not a hyped fan theory, it's not a social media delusion. There's a real, growing, almost unanimous feeling among analysts, journalists, and league insiders that Giannis Antetokounmpo may, yes, have already played his last game wearing the Milwaukee Bucks jersey. Just saying that sounds absurd because we're talking about one of the greatest players of the recent NBA era, a guy who became the synonym of that franchise, who took a small market to the top of the world, and who built a legacy that seemed unbreakable. When you stop and look coldly at everything Giannis did in Milwaukee, it's almost unbelievable. We're talking about a player who arrived raw, without spotlights, without superstar expectations, and turned into a two-time MVP, NBA champion, Finals MVP, and global face of the league. And all of that in a market that was never a star destination, never a priority for big free agents, never had glamour. Milwaukee isn't Los Angeles. It isn't New York. It isn't the Bay Area. And even so, Giannis made history there. It's important to make this very clear. The Bucks' title wasn't an isolated miracle or an empty accomplishment. Chris Middleton was decisive. Drew Holiday played a fundamental role. The roster had its share of merit. But what Giannis did as an individual in that context is something few, or maybe nobody, could replicate. He raised the ceiling of an entire franchise practically by himself. That's not an opinion. It's a fact. But a career isn't only the past. There comes a moment when even the greatest have to look ahead and ask themselves if the environment still allows winning at the highest level. And that's exactly where the conversation changes tone. Because Giannis himself lately has stopped giving any sense of certainty about the future. There are no more firm answers, those declarations of absolute commitment. The talk now is open, almost evasive. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe. And in the NBA, that kind of language is rarely random. When a respected journalist like Mark Spears publicly says there's a feeling that Giannis's last game as a Buck has already happened, that doesn't come out of nowhere. That kind of comment comes from internal conversations, reading the room, picking up signals that people on the outside don't always see. That doesn't mean a trade is already done, or that the destination is locked in. But it means the door that used to look bolted shut is now wide open. And then comes the point that completely changes the game. Stephen Curry. It's no secret that Giannis deeply admires Curry. He's said it more than once. He's praised him, called Steph a reference point, publicly said he sees him as the best player in the world at certain moments. That admiration isn't new, and it isn't marketing. It's genuine respect between two players who change the NBA in different ways, but equally profound ones. And when you combine that with where both of them are in their careers, the conversation reaches a different level. Curry is at the stage where every season counts. Every year has to make competitive sense. Even as age creeps up, his level is still absurd. Elite numbers, unreal efficiency, offensive impact that still warps entire defenses. And at the same time, a roster that clearly needs real help to truly contend for a championship. On Giannis's side, there's a noticeable fatigue. Not necessarily physical, but structural. The sense that the Bucks project has hit a ceiling. Locker room issues, fits that don't work, questionable decisions, instability. When a player of his caliber starts saying in interviews that he doesn't know if he'll finish the season on the same team, that's not normal. That's an alarm. And someone summed all of this up perfectly in a phrase that went viral. The Giannis and Stephen Curry duo is exactly what the NBA needs right now. And it's hard to disagree. It makes no sense to watch two generational talents waste precious years in contexts that don't maximize their championship chances. The league lives off great stories, and few would be as powerful as those two sharing the court at the highest possible competitive peak. Imagine the symbolism. Curry, who revolutionized the game with three-point shooting, spacing, and off-ball movement. Giannis, who redefined the concept of power, explosiveness, and attacking the rim at top speed. Two extremes that complement each other almost perfectly. When one pulls the defense out, the other destroys the inside. When one draws doubles on the perimeter, the other comes like a train toward the basket. And it's not just fan fantasy. From a basketball standpoint, the fit is terrifying. A Curry-Giannis pick and roll would be an absolute nightmare for any defense in the league. You double Curry, Giannis comes free, with space, with momentum, with strength. You pack the paint, Curry kills you from the perimeter with historic efficiency. You try to guard straight up, nobody can do that for 48 minutes. And more than that, the environment, the culture, the organization. Golden State has already proved it knows how to build championship teams around Curry when it has the right piece next to him. We saw it with Kevin Durant. We saw it with deep, smart rosters. And even when the talent didn't look sufficient on paper, Curry lifted everyone around him. The 2022 title is living proof of that. That team wasn't the favorite. It wasn't dominant on paper, but it was Curry's team, and he carried, led, and decided when it mattered most. Finals MVP, absolute leadership, total impact. That shows he doesn't need to be saved, but it also shows that when he has elite help, the ceiling explodes. That's why the idea of pairing Giannis and Curry isn't about charity or desperation. It's about maximizing greatness. It's about not accepting that time simply passes without trying something bold. And while a lot of people still try to treat this as pure daydreaming, Giannis himself keeps the fire burning. Every vague answer, every uncertain look, every strategic silence only increases the feeling that the Milwaukee cycle is ending. Not with hatred, not with ingratitude, but with the awareness that maybe everything that could be done there has already been done. The question now isn't, is this crazy? The question is, why couldn't this happen? The NBA has shown countless times that the unlikely happens. Massive trades, unexpected decisions, alliances nobody saw coming. When stars decide, the league moves. And that's exactly where the conversation starts getting even deeper. Because then we get into the real scenarios, trade possibilities, the sacrifices involved, the price of going all in on one last huge move. And that's what we need to talk about calmly, looking at every detail, every consequence, every risk, and every reward that a decision of this size carries. When we move forward in this conversation and take a little of the initial emotion out, the situation gets even more interesting, because we're not talking only about desire or a beautiful narrative. We're talking about real fit, immediate on-court impact, and how a move this big could reorganize power across the entire NBA. Let's start with the most obvious point. Stephen Curry is still playing at an elite level. That's not rhetoric, it's real production. Even at almost 38, he remains the offensive engine of an entire team, drawing 2, sometimes 3 defenders, creating space for everyone around him. The problem is that, in many moments, that space simply isn't converted because there's a lack of a dominant, consistent finisher, someone who turns defensive attention into easy points, someone who punishes even the smallest mistake by the opponent. And that's exactly where Giannis comes in as an almost perfect piece. Giannis doesn't need the ball all the time to make an impact. He doesn't need to create tough shots. He lives on attacking space, physical force, speed, and a constant presence at the rim. Now imagine that next to a guard who generates more offensive gravity than any player in history. There is no defense prepared for that kind of combination. The simple fact that Curry is on the floor completely changes the geometry of the game. Defenders can't help freely, can't abandon the perimeter, can't collapse into the paint comfortably. That creates natural lanes for Giannis to attack. It's not an exaggeration to say the Greek would probably get the easiest shots of his entire career playing in that context, and the reverse is true too. When Giannis is on the floor, defenses have to respect every drive, every transition push, every cut toward the basket. That forces faster rotations, constant help defense, and opens even more space for Curry to operate. The result is an offensive cycle that's almost impossible to break. That's why so many people inside the league are starting to look at this possibility not as something pretty on paper, but as something terrifying in practice. Of course, The NBA as an institution might not love the idea of a super duo at that level popping up again, but the NBA fan, they want to see history being written. They want great players on great stages. They want basketball at the highest possible level. And when you look at the current moment in the West, that becomes even more relevant. The Oklahoma City Thunder are rising as a young, organized, extremely promising project. Denver still has Jokic. San Antonio is building something special around Victor Wembanyama. Other teams are moving, trying to carve out space. If Golden State stays still, the risk is simple. Time passes and Curry keeps playing at a high level without real championship chances. That's why this conversation can't be treated like a daydream. It's almost a strategic necessity. Now, obviously, none of this happens without cost. A trade for Giannis would require enormous sacrifices. Promising young players, draft picks, roster depth. It would be a full, all-in move, the kind of decision that defines an entire era. But then comes the central question. Is it worth it? If you're the Golden State Warriors, the answer runs directly through Stephen Curry's legacy. How many players in history had a real chance to win 5 titles as the clear main guy? How many could push themselves into even heavier all-time greatness conversations? Those windows don't show up all the time, and when they do, they don't last long. Giving up future picks hurts. Letting go of young talent hurts. But none of that compares to a real chance to lift another trophy with the most important player in franchise history leading the way. And there's another point people ignore. The after doesn't have to be an endless disaster. The NBA changes fast. Rebuilds happen faster than ever. The right picks, strong development, smart decisions can shorten any transition period. Going all in now doesn't mean you're doomed to a decade at the bottom. Look at recent examples around the league. Teams that looked lost made huge leaps in just a few years. It all depends on vision, competence, and a bit of luck. And Golden State has already shown it can work well in those contexts. On Giannis's side, the decision would make sense on multiple levels too. He'd get the chance to play in a winning environment, with an established culture, next to one of the greatest leaders in league history. He'd have less individual pressure, more space to dominate, and more real chances for an immediate title. And there's something symbolic in all of this. Curry isn't just a great player. He's a legacy amplifier. Players next to him tend to be remembered differently. They tend to play the best basketball of their careers. Giannis, even already being massive, could elevate his historical narrative even further in that context. When you put all of this together, it becomes clear it's not a question of, does it make sense? But, when will someone have the courage to try? The signs are there. Giannis's tone has changed. The environment in Milwaukee looks unstable. Golden State needs to act if it wants to maximize Curry's final elite years. And the NBA has already shown that when stars start moving emotionally, the entire machine starts turning. Nothing is confirmed. No trade is done. But the idea stopped being absurd and became plausible. And that alone says a lot. Now, if you want to see basketball at the highest level possible, if you want to see history being written right in front of your eyes, this possibility is way too exciting to ignore. If you enjoyed this content, drop a like right now, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss anything that's happening in the NBA, because the next few months are going to be insane. Comment, too, what you think about this possible union between Giannis Antetokounmpo and Stephen Curry. Does it make sense? Would you make that bet? Your opinion matters a lot here. Sotto, at 22 years old, is an athlete with an impressive track record, something that grabs everyone's attention. His size is remarkable, but what truly makes a difference is the combination of this attribute with his skill and agility. With a clear mastery of the paint game and an offensive ability that stands out, he is the type of player who can make a significant impact on any team. When we consider his qualities, it becomes evident that we're talking about a center who is not only a rim protector, but also creative on offense, making him a real promise for the future. However, his stature and talent are only part of the challenge. The transition to the NBA is a tough process that requires much more than one might expect. The intensity of the league, the speed of the plays, and the physical demand are levels higher than those found in any other basketball league in the world. and this presents a huge challenge for any young player. If Sotto were to be signed by the Golden State Warriors, the implications go beyond the court. The Bay Area, where cultural diversity is a trademark, has a significant Filipino community. Kai's presence as a Filipino would not just be another addition to the team, but a symbol of pride and representation for millions of fans around the world. His impact could be felt not only on the court, but also in the hearts of the fans. Imagine the energy at the Chase Center upon seeing this player, who represents a segment of the global population with so much passion. The Filipino fan base, with its contagious enthusiasm, could transform the atmosphere, creating a unique vibe at every game. Furthermore, by attracting more international attention, the Warriors could expand their brand to unimaginable levels, reaching new markets, especially in Southeast Asia, where basketball has been growing significantly. The entry of a young athlete into the NBA is always a moment filled with challenges, and with Sotto, it wouldn't be any different. The league demands more than just natural skill. Consistency and defensive agility are equally essential. Although the athlete has shown potential at various times, his experience in the Japanese league demonstrated that there are still adjustments to be made. Moments of brilliance are clear, especially on offense, but the NBA's level is unforgiving, and every weakness is quickly exploited. Kai will need to improve his adjustment to the fast-paced rhythm of the league and refine aspects of his game that may be vulnerable. As much as the NBA is a trial by fire for any player, the good news for Kai is that the Warriors, a franchise known for developing talent, could be the perfect environment for him. Under the guidance of great sports legends like Stephen Curry and Draymond Green, along with a highly qualified coaching staff, Kai could evolve in impressive ways, learning and absorbing as much as possible from those who are references in global basketball. However, the pressure to be ready to contribute will be immense. Every spot on the Warriors roster is valuable, and the team aims to win more titles now while preparing for the future with promising young players. Therefore, Kai will need to quickly show that he's ready to be an important piece in the team's pursuit of their next championship. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep up with more content like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you'll stay updated on everything happening in the basketball world. Oh, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell to get notified whenever a new video is posted here. Leave your comment too, we want to know your opinion. See you in the next video.